Okay, class, picking up where we left off at, we were looking at the rest of these bullet points. It says it is common notation to let the letter M represent the slope of a line. The letter M is used because it is the first letter of the French verb monter, meaning to rise or to ascend. If M is greater than 0, the slope is positive and the line rises from left to right. If M is less than 0, the slope is negative and the line falls from left to right. If M is equal to 0, meaning that y sub 2 minus y sub 1 is equal to 0, the slope is 0 and the line is horizontal. If M is undefined, meaning that x sub 2 minus x sub 1 equals 0, the slope is undefined and the line is vertical. Now let's go back here to the formula. Now with this formula here, if you notice, we have two ordered pairs here. Now, when it says y sub 2 minus x sub 1 or x sub 2 minus x sub 1, remember, whenever you deal with ordered pairs, the x and y is in the same position. X is always first, y is always second. But what this is telling you is this is the y, but it's in the second point or the second ordered pair. So that's why it's y sub 2. So you would pick the y value in the second ordered pair. Then y sub 1, you would go to the first ordered pair and take the y value. X sub 2, you would go to the second ordered pair and get the x value. And x sub 1, you will go to the first ordered pair and get the x value. Now, let's go on to the next page. It says use the definition of slope. Find the slope of the line passing through the pair of points. Now determine if the slope is positive, negative, 0, or undefined. So let's just use the slope formula. We know this is x1, y1, x2, and y2. And the slope formula is m is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So now what we're going to do, we're going to substitute. So we substitute. Y sub 2 we know is 4 minus y sub 1 is negative 1 all over x sub 2 is negative 2 minus x sub 1, which is negative 3. Now 4 minus a negative 1, we know these two minus signs will become a plus, so that will give us 5. Negative 2 minus a negative 3, we know these two minuses will become a plus, so negative 2 plus 3 we know is positive 1. So our slope here is positive 5. And we know based upon the definition we had on the last video, that means that if the slope is positive, that means m is greater than 0, then it rises to the right. But first we will put positive. And here we want to draw a picture that represents the direction of the line with the given slope. Now it doesn't have to be exact, it just has to be going in the correct direction. So I could just do this here. This is showing that it's rising. Now we go to the next value. Now we know it's y sub 2, which is negative 2, minus y sub 1, which is 4, divided by x sub 2, which is 2, minus x sub 1, which is negative 3. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6, and 2 minus a negative 3, we know that becomes 2 plus 3, which is 5. So your slope here is a negative 6/5. This here would be negative. And then we have to draw a line that represents this value. Now, of course, this is supposed to be a straight line, but this represents a negative slope. The line is falling from left to right. Now we come here. Y sub 2 is negative 1 minus y sub 1, which is negative 1. X sub 2 is 4 minus x sub 1, which is 2. Negative 1 minus a negative 1 would give us 0. And 4 minus 2 is 2. So we know here that our slope is 0. Now, our slope is 0. Okay, our slope is 0. We will draw a quick graph. It'll be horizontal. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Now, we come here. We will have the slope is equal to y sub 2 is negative 5 minus y sub 1 is 1. X of 2 is 9 minus x of 1 is 9. Negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6, and 9 minus 9 is 0. So we know this slope is undefined. So this is undefined. And an undefined slope has a vertical line. And that is the final answer. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to with 0 slope and undefined slope. If you notice here, when your y values are exactly the same, you come out with a 0 slope. And that means that your y's are the same, not your x's. And then here in D, when it's undefined, your x's are the same, but your y's are not. So your slope will be undefined. Now we come here. Slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. 0 minus 11 is negative 11. 5 minus a negative 10 will give us a positive 15. So we add negative. We draw a line representing a negative slope. Now we come here. We have slope is equal to y sub 2 is 3 minus y sub 1 is 1. X sub 2 is 5 minus x sub 1 is negative 2. 3 minus 1 is 2. 5 minus a negative 2 will give us 5 plus 2 is 7. So your slope is positive. We draw a graph representing a positive slope. Now, we come here. Now, if you look here, our y values are the same and our x is not. So our slope is 0. And now we could draw a visual representation of that. And it has to be as a horizontal line. Now, if we look here, our x values are the same. So our slope is undefined. We know an undefined slope has a vertical line. And if you notice, I put arrowheads there as well. Now we come here. We have y sub 2, which is negative 2, minus y sub 1, which is 5. X sub 2 is 6, minus x sub 1 is negative 7. Negative 2 minus 5 is a negative 7. 6 minus a negative 7 will give us positive 13. So we have a negative slope. We can draw a line representing a negative slope. And we're done with that. Now we come here to J. Notice our x values are the same and our y's are not. So our slope is undefined. We can draw our undefined slope as a vertical line for the graph. Now we come here. We have the slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. 5 minus 10 is negative 5. 8 minus 9 is negative 1. So your slope is positive 5. So it's positive. We do a quick positive slope. And now we come here. Our y values are the same, but our x is not. So our slope is 0. Draw a graph of that. Remember, it must be a horizontal line. And don't forget to put the arrowheads on your lines. Now we come here. Slope is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. 7 minus 4 is 3. 1 minus a negative 3 will give us positive 4. So we know the slope is positive. Draw a line representing a positive slope. Remember, the line rises to the right. Now we come here. Our slope, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. 3 minus a negative 11 is 14, because these two minuses will become a plus. 4 minus a negative 3 will give us 7. So your slope is 2. So it's positive. Again, we must draw another graph. Now, we come to this formula here. As we saw, change in y over change in x, which is the same as rise over run, which is the same as this slope formula. Said if the line goes up to the right, then the slope is positive. The line goes down to the right, then the slope is negative. The line is horizontal, then the slope is 0. The line is vertical, then the slope is undefined, which we have already done. Now, looking at the slope with a table, solve the equation for y. We have 4x plus 2y equals 4. So we want to get y by itself. So we'll subtract 4x on both sides. We add 2y is equal to negative 4x plus 4. You divide each individual term by 2. And y is equal to a negative 2x plus 2. If you notice here, we have this equation, this formula. It says complete the table of values using the equation that will solve for y. So we'll substitute in these values for x. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. So we know y is 2. And we'll substitute in 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, plus 2 is 0. So now we'll substitute in 2. So it'll be negative 4 plus 2, which is negative 2. We'll substitute in 3. Negative 6 plus 2 will give us a negative 4. And finally, we'll substitute in 4 to give us a negative 8 plus 2, which is a negative 6. What do you notice as you move from point to point in the table, from top to bottom? You notice they're going down by 2, by a multiple of 2. Okay, so now it says, does x increase or decrease? Now, if you look here, x is increasing. What is the change? For x, it's a positive 1. 0 to 1, 1 to 2, so it's a positive 1. So we could put plus 1. Does y increase or decrease? It decreases. What is the change? The change is minus 2. So now we substitute in the values. The change in y is negative 2, and the change in x is 1. Now we know that this will equal negative 2. Now, what does this represent? What does this ratio represent? It represents the slope. The change in y over change in x is the slope. Use the table. Do you see the y-intercept? If so, what is it?